I'm talking today with Boisali Biswas, who's one of three artists in the upcoming Discovery Through Process Contemporary Fabric Art Show at the Arts Council of White Lake, which will be open to the public on April 30th. There will be a free reception for the artists on the closing date of the exhibit, which is Saturday, June 8th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Boisali Biswas is based in West Bloomfield, Michigan, and uses the loom to weave intricate stories that are told through rich colors, textures, and separate woven and stitched pieces that she hangs in layers off the wall and in units that cascade from the ceiling. Boisali not only weaves the physical pieces, she also weaves in the layers of the intriguing ephemeral shadows created on the wall. You can find out more about Boisali and her work at www.boisalibiswas.com. Boisali, thanks so much for talking to me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. This is a real pleasure.
You mentioned on your website that you don't have a preconceived idea of what you're going to weave, but that you create as you weave. What is it about this method that appeals to you, and how does it affect your work?
The main reason I say that is because right now I'm using a technique. I have been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now, exploring a very traditional Indian woven inlay technique, which weaves from the back. And it was used to make traditional saris, the 6-yard long saris, but I'm just intrigued by the translucency of the fabric, and by the inlays you get opaque areas. So I was just intrigued with the intricacy of the technique, and I thought I'll use it to create images, to create art. I didn't want to recreate what they were weaving from many, many years back, but I wanted to use the technique in creating artwork, basically. So when I'm doing it from the back, when I'm weaving the backs from the back, and all I can see is the back side of the fabric, I don't have much control over what I'm weaving, because I'm not weaving the traditional designs. I'm doing something pictorial. So I have pretty much a preconceived idea about the composition, and I have some rough sketches beside me, but I don't have a real good cartoon. Like when people weave tapestries, they have it pinned to their weaving at the back and they go according to that. I don't do that normally, but I have a preconceived idea about the composition. So I go from there, and then after I take it off the loom, I have to go back in a lot of areas sometimes. I'm not really happy with the result. So I go back either with embroidery or some needle weaving or some applique. Sometimes I have to do that. But a lot of times I'm pretty happy with what I got. And it's a very intuitive process, I think. And just that it's just the way it works. That's all. And I make it work somehow with the layering and with the shadows and everything. It's a very new process to me, and I have been doing it for like 3 or 4 years now. I'm really enjoying the process because I love the shadows that they are creating. And yeah, the shadow becomes part of the work almost.
You mentioned that
So,
you're weaving from behind the
yeah.
piece. So are you able to see it as you do it from the front, or is it something that you don't look at the front until you've
I can
done
see
the entire thing?
I can see it if I place a mirror in below the weaving and see it that way. But I can't see the whole piece. When I'm weaving a big piece, like say 3 by 4, as it is on the loom, you can see only like 6 to 8 inches when you weaving, right? And then it rolls into the loom. So there's no way I can see the whole piece at all when I'm like, it's not like anything like painting, but I'm trying to create like very painterly designs on the loom. So it is very challenging, and I won't say that I'm 100% satisfied after it comes off the loom, but I make it work. That's the way I'm working now, and it's so far I'm quite happy with what I'm doing.
It's really interesting. When you dropped off your work at the Arts Council, you mentioned that you've taken a strong interest in upcycling materials. In fact, you were recently part of an environmentally themed show with your daughter, who's a conservation ecologist. Can you tell me more about your interest in upcycling and the environment and how it affects the work that you make and the materials that you use?
I think coming from India, I'm just big fan of upcycling materials. I don't throw away stuff like normally, like people, if they just discard each and everything, the daily things that we get rid of. I try to save them and then try to rack my brain over how I can use those a little bit. And that's how that got me into weaving with those, we buy a lot of onions and fruits and lemons and whatever in those plastic net bags, and you see this horrific stories of them going into the ocean and getting caught in the fish and the whales, and also that is just so terrifying to me. And I feel whatever we can do, it's a small, even if it is a small step, we are helping the environment a little bit. I can't help the huge damage that's being done to our environment, but I feel it's my kind of obligation, I think, to Mother Earth to help in a little bit, whatever way I can. So I don't buy any material. I have stopped buying any materials almost for like 10, 15 years, maybe. And we all, as a fiber artist, have collected a lot of fabrics, yarns over the years. So I try to use all of that, and I feel like whatever I have in my studio, I can't use in my lifetime, all that I have, the materials. So whenever I try to conceive work, I try to do that from all the materials that I already have on hand. And that's where my uh, upcycle things come into the picture. Like I weave a lot with the fruit netting bags. I use a lot of styrofoams in my work, styrofoam forms, which are interesting. And if they are something that I can use them, then I cover them with completely with fabric. I glue fabric on them so I don't have the styrofoam exposed. It's still light, but it is still very durable. And then I paint over that, or I stitch over that, or things like that. So I love to use those kind of things in my material. It's just a little small um, step towards helping the environment, I guess.
Do you find that that makes you more creative? Is trying to use and upcycle materials a creative challenge that actually you find exciting? Or is it something that you've just accepted that limitation and that's how you operate?
I feel it's exciting. It really thrills me to think that I have used something which would otherwise go into the garbage. And if I really am in love with that piece, that's what matters to me. And I just love it.
This next question is kind of a long question. I noticed that some of your work has images on it. I'm thinking of the Tucked Away Hamlet, which looks sort of like a wide shot of a town or a village, and The Journey Home, which has an image of a half-open window on it. To me, these pieces have something of a storytelling quality to them because of the images. And I know that in your bio or your statement here about yourself, you mentioned that you craft intricate stories or weave intricate stories. And some of your work is translucent and casts a shadow onto the wall that has a distinctive image. I'm thinking of your piece Cascades, which will be in the upcoming show. And this reminded me of shadow puppetry, and I found myself wondering if any of your work has a connection to either shadow puppetry and or storytelling.
That's very interesting. And I didn't really give it a thought of shadow puppetry as such. It didn't come to mind. It's thank you for mentioning that. And I think that will open up some more avenues for me. And but shadows are something which have been very intriguing to me while working on these translucent pieces, because I was able to cast shadows of things that were woven, but they looked different when they were shadows on the wall as opposed to what they were in the weaving. And about the stories in my work, my coming from India, and I have been here now more than 3 decades almost. but still I feel kind of my soul still lives in India, and I'm so much still connected to my roots, I feel. So automatically, like my images and my nostalgia and everything comes into my work. And it's a kind of a fusion with the Western environment that I live in, and also my memories of India and other places that I've traveled to, which some of the places like Mexico and Italy and all, I find a deep connection to India too in a lot of ways. So those little hamlets and those little images that you were mentioning, those come into my work automatically because I feel my work is kind of narrative. I need to tell a story. Like, even if I'm not doing it intentionally, it is there. So they come into my work, and when I'm doing it with the inlay, those are creating the opaque areas in the translucent weaving. So when they are casting shadows on the wall, they create stories of their own sometimes, which you don't see in the weaving sometimes. You see the weaving one in one image, and then you see the shadow, that's a different image because of the opaque areas. It is little complex, and recently I have started layering my pieces with very sheer fabric and drawings on them, which are opaque with fabric paints. And so when those drawings are casting shadows on the weavings, it is giving like almost like 3 dimensions. So yeah, so it's becoming more and more complex, I feel, what I'm doing. I don't know where it is taking me, but I'm enjoying the journey so far.
That's great, and I love that description because it does go in line with the theme of the show, which is discovery through process. It seems like so much of your process, you're discovering it as you do it, you're figuring it out as you actually make
Oh,
the work at times.
absolutely. Yeah. In every work that I do, I feel I'm learning a lot more. I'm advancing a little more. Like even the translucent weaving, when I see my beginning pieces where I started and where I am now, they are way more complex, and they're way more narrative. And I'm excited about the possibilities of the whole process, I think. So I still don't know where I'm going, but it's exciting.
You're one of the three artists in the upcoming show, Discovery Through Process, and all three of you employ distinctive fiber techniques to create your artwork. Could you describe what process means to you and the role it plays in your art making practice?
I think in fiber art, process is a big part of your practice. Like, no matter what our art practice is, process is a big part of our work, because even within the fiber medium, we have so many different processes and techniques that we all use. All three of us use very different techniques, and they're all within the fiber medium. So process is a big part of our work, I think. And it's basically that we discover our work through these processes, because sometimes we don't even know what the outcome will be. Um, so it's a big part of our whole like expertise, or whatever, what the whole practice in as a whole. Because we all take these workshops, we learn some more techniques, but we don't know exactly where we are going with those techniques that we have learned. So process is a big part of our whole journey, I think, as a fiber artist.
Excellent. Discovery Through Process Contemporary Fiber Art will be open to the public on April 30th. There will be a free reception for the artists on the closing date of the exhibit, which is Saturday, June 8th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And all three artists will be in attendance and conducting a lively conversation, which will include a Q&A with the public. So if you have questions for Boisali, you could ask them then. Boisali, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, and in the meantime, through the show, if anyone wants to have any question or ask me any question, they can shoot me through the website. They can contact me on the website.
Excellent.
I'm
And I'll
more
just,
than happy to answer that. Yeah.
excellent. And that website is www.boisalibiswas.com. Boisali, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much. This is a real pleasure. I'm looking forward to the exhibit, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again on June 8th.